Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Welcome Home. I'm so glad you joined us today, and I know this show is going to be a blessing to you, and here's why. We've been looking back over the last few months at different Welcome Home shows with guests that have had tremendously positive feedback, and Rachael Todd is one of those. You might remember her as a former Miss Florida who found great comfort and peace in practicing her own version of Christian yoga. I can't tell you how many people have commented on my own attempt to slow down my breathing and try to relax as Rachael gave us strategies for calming down. I still need help with that. Well, in addition to being a Christian yoga enthusiast, Rachael is one of those young ladies who suffered from poor self-esteem as a child, but learned to overcome, to embrace her own God-given beauty, and to be a role model for others as she deepened her personal walk with the Lord and focused on what really is important in life. So I'm glad today to reintroduce you to Rachael Todd as you hear her life-changing story. Hi, everyone. We are so excited to be here today with Rachael Todd, who was Miss Florida from 2009. Rachael, I'm so glad we can just talk now. That was so exciting and current, but now you and I are going to talk. But before we talk about your consulting business and empowering women and building self-esteem and all that good stuff, we need to talk about what's getting ready to happen in June.
Absolutely, right? Very exciting.
Yes.
It's the 80th anniversary of the Miss Florida pageant. And I believe Miss America started in 1921, so they're going to be celebrating a big number coming up. I'm not going to try to do the math
me
on
either.
this.
Don't worry, I can't do it either.
But the Miss Florida pageant is celebrating its 80th anniversary, which means there's only 80 Miss Floridas. And we'll be crowning our 81st.
That's right.
This year.
Well, it's so exciting because it really is a wonderful way to empower women.
Absolutely.
I mean, I never would have thought about that as a teenager entering the Miss Florida pageant back in the 1970s. It was like, wow, but it has stayed with me for 44 years coming up this summer. And it really does give you a voice where other things don't always do that. Plus, it totally paid for my college education.
Absolutely.
So that was the reason I entered, because of that. And it's a wonderful scholarship pageant, but it also gives young women a voice because of the platform. What was your platform?
My platform was the end of homelessness in America. And I was in college at UCF, and like you, I saw the opportunity for scholarship money. And so I thought, well, I was never the homecoming queen or the prom queen. I was never invited to any school dance by any boy. And so I thought, oh my gosh, if I could just be the queen of the school. And along with that came scholarship money. And at the same time, my family had started the Hope Foundation in Oviedo, Florida. My mother found a great need to assist families who were facing homelessness for the first time. And she didn't really know the monster she was getting into when she decided to open up and start a 501c3 nonprofit organization. But I was there from the beginning and helped her to found it and helped walk families through the food pantry and to see and hear their stories and to see firsthand that it wasn't just a man who was an alcoholic on the side of the street, or you know, somebody who just gave up on life and said, I'm just going to sit here on the sidewalk. It was families who were working hard and couldn't make ends meet. It was women whose husbands might have lost their jobs and left because they didn't know what else to do, because they didn't feel like a man anymore. And so these women were left with a mortgage and car payments and children and school. And so it was these stories where it really put a face to that homeless population.
So you did that for a year where you really promoted that platform. And then, Rachael, at some point, you got to the point of you opened your own consulting business and you really got interested in empowering women. How did that happen?
Well, for me, I mean, we talked about this in the panel, but I didn't get to go into much detail. I grew up with really low self-esteem and very unconfident in who I was. I had been made fun of. I was put into the advanced program when I was in school, and that kind of ostracized a group of us. And so I kind of lived in that place of like, this is who I am and nobody likes me and I don't want to look at people in the eye. I don't even want to make eye contact because they don't want to look at me. And then when I got into college, I started to embrace my gifts, and then I won Miss Florida. And it was out of my power. I mean, I really believe that with every part of my being. I mean, I watched the pageant back on tape and I'm just like, there is no reason why I should have won that pageant.
But God wanted that for you.
But God wanted that for me. And I saw the job. I saw what the opportunity was and I went after that. And I wasn't after the crown or what was going to happen on stage. To answer your question about you were talking about empowering women.
Yes.
And so by the end of my term is really when I began to embrace that. And then I was able to utilize my scholarship money to go to a yoga institute where I became a yoga instructor. And for me, that was just more about realizing who I was and the gifts that I had been given. And then I went on to get a degree in positive psychology, where I studied the science of happiness and well-being, and how are some people so motivated that they accomplish things in life, and what is it about those people, and how can we teach those habits and rituals to those who may not be as self-motivated? What is the science behind all of that? And I was kind of showing you guys some of the science earlier about, there's a wonderful researcher named Amy Cuddy who did some research on power poses and able to show that people who literally just put their arms above their head, it raises the hormone of testosterone and lowers the stress hormone of cortisol. So learning all of these incredible science things.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it is science. It's a biology kind of a thing rather than just...
Our bodies are incredibly made. And scientists are able to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and it only enforces faith for me. And then from the positive psychology degree, I'm now getting my health coaching license.
Oh,
so
good.
to kind of layer all of that together on top of my experience with pageantry, that is how it came to be too.
That is so cool, Rachel, because a lot
that was a very long story.
That is a great story, though, because there'll be some young girls or women or maybe moms out there watching today that just, they don't feel good about themselves. And we do need to know that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God can do all kinds of wonderful things in and through us. In particular, I mean, you talked about being a redhead with freckles and being bullied and very smart back in high school, and yet that was looked down upon. And now look where you are today. You are empowering women. I wanted to read something that Carolyn Pancala, I love this quote. She didn't have time to do it on the current panel, but she gave it to me to read to you so that you can understand how wonderful this is. This is from Max Lucado. He says, "A woman's heart should be so hidden in God that a man has to seek him just to find her." Seek him, meaning God. If you can find your woman in God, wow, what a great thing that is.
Absolutely.
So tell me, though, a little bit about your background, because I know that I felt really good about myself growing up because I had a dad who encouraged me, and a mom, my mom and my dad, but my dad in particular made me feel like a princess. I understood that I was a daughter of the king. I could do anything. What was lacking maybe in your childhood, or what made you not believe? Maybe your parents told you the same thing, you didn't believe it. I don't know.
Right. I just think that our peers, when you're in elementary school and middle school, have so much more power.
Right.
And I had a wonderful upbringing. My parents were great. My father, you know, I don't think he instilled that in me as much as I think that fathers should. And that's not to say anything negative about my father.
And not all they don't know. They don't know to do that.
To do that. And I mean, he would always take me to the father-daughter dance and tell me I looked beautiful. But I remember not believing my mother when she would tell me. I would come home crying, or I would be crying in my room, and she would find me, and I would tell her that, you know, some boy had told me that I was the ugliest girl at school. And when you're a little girl, that is just devastating. It's obviously not the most important thing in the world, but it was devastating. And she would tell me, "Oh, sweetheart, you're beautiful," and she would stroke my hair, and I would just get angry at her because I thought she was lying to me or just trying to make me feel better.
Right. Right. I think it's so, and you mentioned this on the current panel, it's so important for us to instill values in our children, in particular our daughters, rather than always telling them, you know, if I had been your mother, I'd been doing the same thing. What gorgeous red hair you have, you're so beautiful, your eyes, you're smiling, all of that. When really, and I have a beautiful granddaughter. She's 6 years old, and she has curly hair, blue eyes, and I'm always telling her how beautiful she is. And her mother reminds me to say, tell her about her character. Tell her how kind she is, how adorable she is. And you said on the panel, you did a really good job at something. You found success.
Right.
What are some other tools, Rachel, that you think we should be using?
Absolutely. So in my positive psychology course, we studied a whole segment on parenting and raising our children in that positive psychology mindset. And to really recognize that, what I was saying earlier is that maybe they got a B on their science project and they worked really hard on it. So not always saying to your child, like, you should have gotten an A, you're so smart, you're the smartest one in class, because that was kind of the mentality for a little while of everybody gets a trophy, you're all the smartest, but really instilling that you need to work hard in order to accomplish something. And so maybe recognizing in your child, like, I saw that you worked for months on that project, and I'm very proud of your work ethic.
Yes.
I'm very proud of how hard you worked on this. a story that my professor told. His name is Tal Ben-Shahar. I have to talk about him. He is from Harvard, and that's where my course originated. And so for those people thinking like, oh, positive psychology, that just sounds like the study of rainbows and butterflies. It's really the science of happiness, and it's a growing segment of the psychology world. Tal Ben-Shahar talked about his son and how he had this little action figure and it fell into a crack in the elevator. And his first instinct as a parent was to say to his son, that's okay, stop crying, we'll get you a new one at the store, it's okay. And he said he stopped himself because he thought, my son needs to experience loss. And so I think as parents, I can see how you may want to just immediately end their pain.
Make everything okay.
Right. And maybe that's not always the right thing to do.
Yeah. But give them coping skills, ways to understand that there will be loss in life, there will be failure in life, but it's okay that life goes on. I think that's so important.
Building resiliency is so important because then those children are going to face much bigger trials in life. And if they've not gained those skills, they're going to crumble.
Well, and character traits, Rachel, I think about you not being married yet. My 23-year-old daughter's not married yet, and she made a list, you probably have done this too, of character traits she would like to have in a husband. And nowhere in that list of 15 or 20 traits is handsome. It's just not there. Because we know at a certain point that, it's a nice benefit if you have it, that's great. If you've got a great body, that's great. If he's athletic, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that character. Have you done that? I bet you have.
Oh, yes. And there's so many books that encourage it when you're in your 20s, you're in college, and they're like,
so what are some character traits that you would look for in a man? There might be, that guy might be out there right now, Rachel, you never know.
Well, I think that being patient is very important in a man because sometimes us women we're very different. We're different creatures than men.
We are.
And they have to have patience and honesty and to be virtuous and to be grounded in their faith. To be rooted, I think is so important. I feel like that was something that was probably missing in my life. And to have that grounding would be very, very important.
Yeah. Kelsey has one of the traits on hers is loyalty. She thinks that loyalty is so, so important because she's seen it modeled in her dad. Her dad is a faithful, loyal man, and I think that there's certain character traits that you pick up because you've seen it modeled in other people as well.
And it just becomes something that's unacceptable if it's not there.
Right. Well, we're going to do something fun. Our viewers are going to love this next segment. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know this. Rachel is an incredible yoga instructor. Now, yoga, don't get freaked out about it. Yoga does not have to be a Mid-Eastern kind of religion. It's not at all. Yoga gives us an opportunity to meditate on God's Word, to meditate on truth, to really focus and center ourselves. Well, I don't know that much about it, but I know Rachel knows an awful lot about it. And she's going to get on a mat on the floor and teach us some yoga moves. So I might do it with her. I'm not sure. Hi, everyone. I told you didn't know what you were going to get yourself into because we want you to get down on the floor or in a chair there at home and do some exercises with us. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, Rachel, what are we doing here today with yoga?
Don't be scared. Don't be alarmed. So, when I first went to go get trained to be a yoga instructor, my mother was very weary as well. She was like, what are you going to do? Because I went and lived at the retreat center in Massachusetts for a month. And I have to say, the most incredible thing happened was when I learned about the history of yoga. And I dove into what they believe in. It all points back to God, and it all points back to the same story, and it all points back to the same basic principle that we're here to love and be loved in return. And it was just so life-changing for me it hit it home for me that everything I'd been learning from my mother and my father to be a Christian was just even more solidified going to yoga school. So I just wanted to say that
that's good.
Going into this.
I
it
like
was just
that.
Incredible. And some things I like to say to those who may not have ever attended a yoga class, what to expect. This mat is considered a sacred space when you're in yoga class. And whatever happens on your mat is for you. And nobody's watching you, nobody's judging you, nobody's worried about whether you look good doing the poses or not good, or if you fall down. In fact, in yoga, we teach that when you fall, it's an opportunity to learn something. And it's an opportunity for your muscles to grow and learn something. Because as children, we don't help our children when they're falling and learning to walk. We let them fall because that's how they learn.
Good, I like that.
So those are some things to just let go of going into a yoga class. You don't have to worry about being perfect.
Good.
And the fact that you've arrived on your mat is a victory.
That's a big deal for me to even get down here, Rachel, I have to tell you. And to sit cross-legged.
And so, another point is that yoga focuses so much on the breath, really about breathing. And in our Western culture, we forget to breathe. It's something that our body automatically does for us.
Yeah.
And we're so blessed that our bodies are that incredible that they will breathe for us. But we forget that we're supposed to breathe. And a wonderful point that I learned at yoga school was that the only thing that you have from the moment you're born and the moment you die is your breath. It is with you from the beginning to the end, and the only thing that is.
Okay.
And so we forget that.
To take care of that.
It's time to recognize your breath.
Okay.
Yes. So we're just going to breathe.
Okay.
I'm going to teach a couple of breathing practices. And when I work with women, I really focus on cultivating mindfulness and just literally sitting in a space. And like you said, meditating is a great place for prayer and to reflect on your life and to reflect on what's coming up in the future. And when I work with women, I really try to get them to just slow down, because a lot of times we think we have to be everything and be everywhere at once and be everybody at once.
It's true.
And I see frantic in their eyes when I work with them. And I just focus on first just getting them to just be present and just come into your body. So a breathing exercise called Dirga breathing, and it's 3-part breathing. And so we really focus on putting one hand on the belly and one hand on the chest up here on your clavicle, I guess you could put it there. And so the 3 parts that we're going to talk about are your belly, your ribs, and your chest. And so a 3-part breath, you're going to breathe into the belly through your nose. So you're breathing into the belly, and then into the ribs, and then into the chest. And then as you exhale, like pouring water out of a pitcher, you're going to exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Inhale into the belly, the ribs, chest. Exhale from your chest, your ribs, and then your belly. Inhale like filling up a beautiful pitcher of water, your belly, your ribs, your chest, and then exhale like a waterfall from your chest, your ribs, and your belly. Inhale the belly, the ribs, chest. Exhale from your chest, your ribs, and your belly. You can continue this breath on your own, at your own pace. And you can allow your hands to fall into your lap during this breathing. And a very good visual for this breath is like a wave. Like a wave is just flowing in and flowing out. And this can be done anywhere, in traffic or at home.
You know what I'm realizing, Rachel, and I'm probably not supposed to be talking, but in a real yoga class I would not be talking, but
Right.
I'm realizing how shallow my breathing is, that I'm just kind of like, it's a normal breath for me because I'm high energy. And this has totally relaxed me. Those of you who are out there today who are stressed,
Right,
right?
right.
To just slow down the breathing, belly,
Ribs.
ribs, and chest.
And this can be done lying in bed as well. And a wonderful, when you really get into the breath, I like to put my hands on both sides of my ribs. And I like to feel myself being breathed and to have the visual of your lungs expanding and contracting, and the way that they're able to move your ribs is so incredible.
It is.
And we just don't pay attention to it.
There's that fearfully, wonderfully made thing going on again.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I love
and
that.
so a lot of this can cultivate confidence and grounding and self-esteem. And we rush through life, and as women, like I said, we think we have this list, this checklist of things that we have to be. And you don't have to be anybody. You're enough when you wake up in the morning. And when I work with women, I really focus on this. We bring in yoga and meditation and mindfulness and breath work, along with positive psychology. It's all intertwined. The reason why my professor brought the course from Harvard to the Yoga Institute was because he believed it's so much in the mind-body connection. And at Harvard, sitting in a lecture room, he wasn't able to embody the work that we were learning. And so much of it is so interconnected.
Rachael, one thing that you taught me before we actually started, the thing about putting our hands, would you talk us through that?
Absolutely.
I think that's such a great exercise.
There's a researcher by the name of Amy Cuddy who has an incredible story as a woman as well. She was in a terrible accident when she was 19 and was told she would never finish college, that she would lost IQ points, and she had found her identity with being smart. And so she went on to overcome all those obstacles. She's a wonderful woman to look up, Amy Cuddy. And her research is on power poses. And so they studied and had an experiment where they had people just do something as simple as putting their arms above their head. Because this is what? Victory.
Yeah,
this is
there we go.
Winning a race. This is what a gymnast does at the end of her routine. This is the universal symbol for pride. And actually, people who were born blind still do this pose after they win something without ever having it modeled for them. So it's innate in us that this means power. And if you watch bears or animals or lions, when they get big, this means that they're taking up more space. They're getting power. And so they found that people who did something like this power pose for 2 minutes before going into a job interview were more likely to get hired than somebody who did an inferior pose. Or you could also just stand with your hands on your hips, with your legs. I don't know if we're allowed to stand up. They did the cameras.
That's okay. That's all right.
So you can put your hands on your hips, and they call this Superwoman. So your hands are on your hips and your legs are apart. Or sitting back in a big chair like a CEO would do. Those are all power poses. Something that's an inferior pose would be crossing your legs or getting small. Think about in times when we take the back seat or when we feel inferior, we instinctively cross our arms. And one of the biggest inferior poses is to block the neck, because that means you're protecting yourself. And those are all very innate animal instincts.
But what you told us, that there's actually a hormone that gets released when we do this. That to me,
so they tested the saliva of people before they did the experiment. And they found that 25% increase in testosterone when somebody did a power pose and a 20% decrease in cortisol. And cortisol is your stress hormone.
So if you're feeling stressed, do this for 2 minutes, right?
Or if you're getting ready to give a big presentation, or if you're having a big meeting, or you're about to go on stage or on camera.
Cool. I love
and what
that.
it does is it cultivates authenticity. They found that it wasn't, people were saying, well, I don't want to be fake. I don't want it to be cultivated. I don't want it to be something that's just like I'm doing this because I have to. They found that it increased people's validity, it increased their authenticity, it increased people's attraction to what you were saying.
So Rachael, you're doing yoga and you're teaching yoga to other people. Would you say that that is now your passion in life, to really help women understand who they are in Christ?
Absolutely, absolutely. I started a company called RKT Consulting, and that's actually my initials, but it stands for Real Kaizen Transformation. And Kaizen is a Japanese word that means incremental change over time. And I believe that we are never going to be perfect, and we shouldn't strive for perfection. But we should always be working towards becoming the next best version of ourselves. And I work with women on figuring out where their strengths and their passions and their desires intersect, and how to create a life of fulfillment and to find their femininity, to feel feminine, because that's really what we were designed to be as well, to be beautiful creatures who offer comfort and safety and strength. And to really own all of that.
We are nurturers by nature. Most of us are nurturers because we're female. But to think about that as being a strength as well, that's something that we need to grab hold of, and to really believe that and to own it. And I love that you've come to us today, Rachael, and you're helping with some of these good things.
And if you're looking for any help in the way of confidence and self-esteem and figuring out what it is that you want to do with your life and pursue with passion, you can certainly find me on the internet, and I'm available for anything that I can offer.
You are awesome. Thank you so much, Rachael Todd, for being here with us
Thank you.
today. What a wonderful program today. I hope you enjoyed it. It really is important for us to share life-changing stories of people who are overcomers, and our guests today were great examples of overcomers and achievers, really believing that God makes us as women special, fearfully and wonderfully made. Well, today I want to end our time together with a note of hope. Who of us has never felt lonely, sad, depressed, or even worthless? We live in a society buzzing with activity all around us, and yet so many of us feel all alone. We struggle with feeling good about ourselves. I have to remind myself that God is my constant companion. He's with us in our darkest hours of despair. His right hand holds us fast. I love the words of David in Psalm 139 where he says, "O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You are familiar with all my ways." There's no prayer too difficult for God to answer, no problem too great, no life too insignificant that our loving, gracious Heavenly Father will not take care of us. He will. He longs to hear our deepest thoughts and concerns. He wants to embrace us with His love, protection, mercy, and even companionship. Won't you take hold of all God has to offer you today? Be encouraged that you are never alone with your Lord Jesus Christ at your side. And remember this, you are worthwhile because God created you. You are unique and special to Him. And that's our note of hope for today. We'll see you next time right back here on Welcome Home. Bye-bye, everybody, and God bless you.